Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 18. Today, we will continue moving the farms over to the new area, freeing up space in the more central places on the island. We will also manage to get the tech to upgrade our ships once more, and start taking out pirates on the world map. But, as the episode title suggests, we will get started on making some advanced electronics, which is needed to continue with our research tree, and to make the next tier of construction parts. It will be about as complex as the healthcare was, so it's not really a big deal. Just don't expect to see the final setup, we will just put together something rudimentary to unlock the tech tree a bit more. Oh yeah, and we will finish digging out the top level of the coal mine at last, and finish the first stage of the retaining walls. Before we get started, if this is not your first video from this channel, you already know what to expect. If you want to be kept up to date, please consider subscribing, and if you like what you see, leaving a like will also help letting me know what to focus on. But enough talking, let's get into it. Well, today we will finally manage to finish setting up the topmost retaining walls at last, and it's all thanks to these two intrepid excavators. They are set to mine dirt and stone, the rest are doing coal. And I think we can see where the edges are at this point, so we can make some educated guesses about how far we need to dig. Next, since I plan on cutting through the forest with the main bus, maybe we should tell the outside harvester to cut down these trees. As for the dirt mounds near the new farms, this little guy got confused about its pathfinding, so we need to reset it. And it's off to do its job. In the last episode, we managed to pipe in the fertilizers for the farms, but didn't get around to doing the water. Let's take care of it now. To completely get rid of the old farms, we will also need to move the one growing tree saplings. I think the best place for it would be next to the forestry place, so we can use belts to deal with the transfers. As for water, I suppose we can just use the local groundwater reservoir. Same as before, I don't think we need to worry about giving this farm any fertilizer, just water will be enough. We only need to belt the saplings into the forestry tower's warehouse, and our trucks will have one less thing to worry about. I tried to encourage the excavator to work on the parts of the hill that are closest to the farms, but it will be pretty stubborn. We will need to take off some of the designations a bit later to make it do what we need. You know what? We are so close to the end of this whole endeavor, I will just brute force this last bit of digging, and then we can send everyone back to doing coal. And we just finished researching everything we can. All subsequent techs are red, meaning we need to do something before they become available. For the farming stuff, we just need to find seeds on the map. But for the next tier of construction, we need to make some tier 2 electronics of our own. We can no longer use the looted stuff, we actually need to make some of our own. Also, that last tech we got, that was the level 2 ship weaponry. Once the flagship is upgraded, we can go and hunt those 400 difficulty pirates. As for that extra copper storage, I put that there to empty out the shipyard. We have quite a few stuff in there, and I thought it was time for some spring cleaning. And as you can see, we finished digging out the upper levels of the coal mine. I will set the next level down to be dug out, and then we can finish building the last remaining retaining walls. And at long last, the topmost retaining walls are done. It's been a long time coming. Also, the ship has been upgraded. We are much more powerful, and we can deal with 400 difficulty pirates now. Let's go hunt some of them down. There. All the retaining walls are fully built. Once we are done digging the next level down, we can build the next set. We can prepare for that by getting rid of the unnecessary designations. Again, this is where single tile designations would be incredibly useful. Anyways, we got canola seeds from those last group of pirates, so we can research those. Which reminded me that we need to make some advanced electronics, since we need them to progress further. The two new things we need are PCBs, and silicon. This should be interesting. Let's start with the former. For those, we need glass, plastic, and copper. The thing is, our only source of plastics is all going toward the healthcare stuff, so I think it would be best if we set up a secondary plastic factory. Since I don't want to do any more corn farming than what we are already doing, I think we need to go with naphtha on this one. The best way I think will be the third stage of oil refining, which can turn light oil into naphtha and fuel gas. Since we are using most of the light oil to make steam already, we can just use the leftovers for this. This is the stage 3 of oil refining. Just as before, it needs steam to operate, so we will need to tap into the central steam pipes for this. As for the light oil, we should still send all we can to the boilers first, then the stage 3 refinery, and only then send the rest to the flare. Since we need a 2-stage priority system for this, we will need 2 balancers. The first one will prioritize sending all it can toward the second balancer, and only send the leftovers to the flare. And then, the second balancer will prioritize the boiler storage tank, and send the rest to the distillery. This way, boilers get first dibs, then the naphtha production, and then the flare. At this point, The refinery has everything it needs. About the fuel gas output, at this point I didn't know that we will be able to make use of it here, so I built a pipe going all the way to the biodiesel setup at the town, since we are already processing that stuff there. I don't know why the game switched to the bulldozer tool there. I didn't press B, so it was a bit weird. Still, it's just one pipe, no big deal. After this, we can just feed the naphtha into a tank, and that part of the chain is done. And we are still only working toward making some extra plastic. The chlorine is readily available at the desalinators, where we make it out of the leftover brine. And we have a bit of extra plastic being made. I think we have everything we need to make the PCBs at this point. Again, this is just a temporary setup, so we can carry on with the research. So don't expect any permanent planning here. I didn't even bother sticking the factory into the factory district, we will just put it here, and deal with the final setup at a later date. So, we need glass, plastics, and copper. This thing is so temporary, that I don't think I will even bother belting in the plastic, even though it's right next door. Okay, that's the PCBs done. But that's just the first step to advanced electronics. They are blank right now, we need to print some actual circuits on those boards. But, before I got to that, I checked on the hill removal operation, and got tired of waiting for the excavator to do the right thing, so I forced its hand by removing the unimportant parts. It can have them back once we have room for the farms. Okay, we have some PCBs made at this point. Let's see what's next. Well, we have everything, except for silicon. That will keep complicating things for us, let me tell you. To make that, we will need to make some hydrogen. We could use electrolysis to break down water, but water is kind of important. But, we could use fuel gas instead. And we are already making some right at the third stage refinery. So, instead of sending that to the biodiesel setup, we will pipe it into the hydrogen reformer instead. Thankfully, it will vent out CO2, so dealing with that exhaust will be easier once we get around to dealing with pollution. And that was the third oil rig we found. Given that we still have over 80% left in the one we are using right now, I think we have a bit of wiggle room in terms of oil supply. Anyways, this takes care of the hydrogen. The neat thing about this is that we could set up a bit of a backup hydrogen battery. Once we have solar power researched, and we have enough surplus to go around, we could use electrolyzers to break water down into H2 and O2, store the hydrogen in big storage tanks, and use it as a backup fuel source for steam generators, burning it back into water. Not really worth doing, but it's a neat little side project to play around with. Anyways, we needed the hydrogen to make the silicon, which is done in the silicon reactor. Apart from the H2, it also needs molten silicon fed into it. Let's see what we need for that. Sand, coal, and graphite. Well, another new thing we haven't done before. Graphite. That should be the last thing we really need to worry about though. But, let's take care of the reactor inputs, and then we can deal with the silicon mix. Apparently, silicon goes into the warehouse, not the loose storage. Now, about that mix we need to make the molten silicon. The only new thing is graphite. Thankfully, it's super easy, just coal and chlorine. It will even give some extra sour water, which we can pump into the fertilizer production. Good thing we have chlorine coming into this area already, we can just tap into that pipe. As for coal, we can just share the storage we used for the silicon mix. Now, the sour water. Which pipe was dealing with that one again? The bottom one, it seems. Theoretically, we should be able to make some silicon with this little setup. I didn't bother making sure the ratios are correct. This is super janky, only meant to kick us over the next research threshold. Anyways, we have the room for the farms now, so the excavator can get back to work on the rest of the hills. Very good. We have some silicon in the warehouse. But, those new farms took away some of the workforce. We should focus on finishing those. Once we demolish the old farms, we should get some of those workers back. But, since we had what we needed, I decided to quickly deal with the circuit board production. Alright. Once we have the workers, we should see some Tier 2 electronics being made. Once we made 20 of them, we can continue researching. This is weird. We have an empty copper storage, and the shipyard is set to be emptied out at priority 1. And yet, the storage will only get filled up if we explicitly tell it to be filled up. Oh well, as long as it gets done, I don't mind. Anyways, to free up the workers at the old farms, we should deal with the new ones. And for that, we need to pipe over the water and fertilizers. In hindsight, maybe I should have left a single tile gap between the greenhouse and the potato storage. Let's make sure all the pipes are facing the right way, and these farms are good to go. Now, how many vegetables do we need again? Stop messing with the electronics, and focus on the job at hand. We need workers. So, we need 46 units of veggies per minute. And this is the perfect excuse to use the built-in calculator for the first time. The only reason I remembered is because I recorded this episode right after I finished editing the last one. Only, I messed up. I divided by 3, not 4. We only need 11.5 veggies per minute from a single greenhouse, not 15. We are going to overproduce this until the next episode. Not that it's a big deal, we are just going to make a bit extra biodiesel. Anyways, it's time to start getting rid of the unnecessary pipes now. They are in the way. At this point, we should have made enough electronics to satisfy the research criteria. Yep. We can go ahead and research Tier 4 construction parts. We can also move the main bus path, since we are no longer being restricted by the farms. We will need to move the concrete factory, but that's hardly an issue. And we just found fruit seeds. We might want to convert 2 of the veggie farms to this later. Also, we can continue researching new stuff. Apart from the next tier of research, we can also get more advanced power generation buildings, solar panels, etc. I'll be honest, I don't see much progress being made on the deforesting outside the tree farm. Might end up reassigning that second harvester to the tower. But, speaking of farms, how about we deal with the last remaining fields? We still have 2 cornfields left. Good thing the pipes can be dealt with by a single copy-paste command. Oh, right. Almost forgot to add a warehouse for the vegetables. You know, we keep getting alerts about the town water generator's fuel supply. Maybe we can set it to 50%, since 75% seem to be a bit too high. Also, these distillers are getting close to the limit of the town's demand. Maybe we should start thinking about replacing them with a proper desalination setup. We are using quite a bit of fertilizers, but don't forget, we are using way too much for the veggies right now, since I miscalculated the farm outputs. Once we bring them down again, we should be okay. At least that's my hope. And checking on the corn supply, it seems the current production gives us a neat upward trend. I think we can set the new greenhouses to go for the same production quotas. Things are getting a bit cramped between the farms by now, but honestly, since we are belting the crops, we really shouldn't need anyone going in there anyway, so even if we end up blocking it, it's not gonna be a big deal. And good thing I checked the water pipes. They are really struggling to pump in the water the farms need. Good thing we can deal with that by simply upgrading the main pipes to tier 3. I will even do the fertilizer ones, just for good measure. That should take care of the water throughput issues. I forgot to upgrade the pipe coming in from the desalinator tank, but I'm sure I will notice it sooner or later. Anyways, the shipyard managed to get rid of the copper ore, so that extra storage can be demolished. But, we have quite a bit of impure copper left in there. We can just build a small warehouse for them, belt them into the current copper setup to be purified, and we have one less thing wasting space in the docks. I suppose we can just dump the tree saplings into the sea. They are practically free, so we are not really wasting anything by dumping them. Maybe a tiny bit of power we use to pump up the water, but that's about it. Also, the tree harvesting outside the forestry is pretty much dead. For now, I just sent the second harvester to the tower, but I might take them off one day, just to finish cleaning up stuff. And I think this is pretty much it for this one. We managed to make our first tier 2 electronics, and we are days away from finishing the next construction parts research. After that, we can move on to bigger and better things. Now that we have all that room freed up at the old farms, we can start setting up a bit of an industrial district. I would like to deal with the different chemicals in a bit more organized fashion, give glass making a proper place on the island, all that sort of thing. We can also build a proper biodiesel setup, and pass our food through it before it goes to the town too. Not to mention the fuel refinery. It's a bit boxed in right now, so if we ever need to expand, we might be in trouble, so I would like to orient it toward the center of the island, so it can be more easily expanded if necessary. We have quite a bit of temporary setups littered around the place, and they really need a permanent home. Also, once the mines are all walled up correctly, maybe we should start thinking about building a land bridge to that huge oil deposit in the middle of the bay. Exploiting that would be quite an achievement. Anyways, if you haven't done it already, I'd love it if you subscribe to the channel, and leaving a like would also let me know that this video was worth making. If you feel that it was good enough, and you can afford it, please consider going to my Ko-fi page, which you can find in the description, and donate an amount that you feel is appropriate. And if you did like what you've seen, there should be links to some of my other videos and playlists on the screen. Thank you for your support, and I'll see you in the next one.